Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another EU book review. And today we're going to be taking a look at the last book in the Han Solo Brian Daley trilogy. We are going to be talking about Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. And out of all three of the Brian Daley books, this is the novel that has my favorite cover on it. I really like this cover of Solo and Chewbacca and the background in there. And while this is my favorite cover, this is not my favorite book out of the Brian Daley trilogy. And we'll talk about a little bit about why that is. Now, this book is not a terrible book. It's not a bad book. It goes along pretty well with the rest of the trilogy, and the writing is still crisp and nice, and the characters are still well written. The dialogue is still good. But out of the three that he has written, I think this is the one I like the least. And it's not that it's really low compared to the others. The others I rated at a 4. I think this one I rated at a 3.5. Between a 3 and a 3.5. So it's a little bit lower. It's not terrible. It's just not the strongest of the lot. And I think a lot of the reason for that is because what were good aspects of the other novels are not present in this book. In this book, for the majority of it, Han Solo is grounded. He's on a planet. The whole book takes place on a planet with him and Chewbacca and others. There's no space battles. The Millennium Falcon is in it, but it's grounded. So this takes place completely on a planet as opposed to the other ones where there were some space battles going on. There was some investigation going on. It just felt a little not as up to par as the other two were. Again, not that it's a bad book, but it's not on par with all of the other ones. In this book, Han Solo and Chewbacca essentially get sort of roped in to searching for a lost treasure. There was somebody who existed back in the Old Republic. His name was Zim the Despot. And he apparently, in addition to waging a lot of war, collected a lot of treasure, had many vaults across many planets. And so Han and Chewie and about 5 others are basically on this planet looking for the lost treasure of Zim. And instead of really sort of capturing the feel of a Star Wars story, it captures more of the feel of an Indiana Jones story. So you're on this planet, and you're trying to get to these vaults and to these other vaults. You're trying to find this treasure. You're trying to solve puzzles. There is some resistance by the people that are guarding the treasure. There's a legion of war robots that is unleashed on you at the end. So it feels a lot more like Indy than it does Star Wars. Not that that's bad. It's just sort of a difference from the other books. You don't typically see Han Solo in a sort of a grounded type of adventure where, he's doing a lot of the things that Indiana Jones would have been doing, which would have been spelunking and solving puzzles and finding ancient vaults and trying to capture ancient treasure. And then when you finally get to the vault at the end of the book and you get to the treasure, you find out that you did all of this for worthless treasure, and now you have to make your escape from the planet with your ship and sort of make your getaway. It did tie up some loose ends at the end. Galandro from the second book makes his return here. He's still after Han Solo. He had a sort of a more diminished role, and it's good that they wrapped up the Galandro storyline, but they didn't sort of wrap it up in a way that I thought was satisfying. because he just sort of comes out of nowhere and says, "I'm still after you, Solo, and we still need to do our quick draw. I'm still here to get my whatever it is that he's getting." So he does show up. There is an ending to his storyline. It's not a very satisfying ending to the storyline. And at the end of the book, all the people that he's with, people that he's met over the course of this adventure and other adventures, they all sort of make their separate ways, including Bollocks. Bollocks and Blue Max, they go off. A couple of other people go off. They actually go off to work at a university. See, there's another connection between this book and Indy, is that there's that university connection where, Indiana's doing these things because of the sake of history and finding and teaching history. So at the end of the book, everybody that he's met sort of goes their separate ways, and the very, very last bit of the book, Han decides to maybe throw his luck in with Jabba the Hutt. Right? So there's your connection between this book and A New Hope, is at the end of the book, now that Han Solo has had all of his adventures in the corporate sector and the Tian hegemony, and he's done all of that stuff. Now he's like, well, what are we going to do, Chewie? Well, I guess we're going to go on one last Kessel run, and maybe we're going to go work for Jabba. It was an okay way to end the trilogy. It's an okay way to end the book. We all know where Han winds up anyway, so there's not really any... It's not a twist to know this, that he's going to wind up working for Jabba. We know that. We know that based on A New Hope. So overall, it was okay. As a trilogy, it was good. I think as a trilogy, it's well worth your time to read the books. It's for the most part, it's great characterization of Chewie, of Han, and of other characters in the book. It fills in nicely some of the backstory of what he was doing prior to when we meet him in A New Hope. Fits nicely in with the A.C. Crispin Han Solo trilogy. Of course, she wrote a lot of her third book in that trilogy around these books to make sure that everything sort of fit in. But it's not bad. I would give it a read, especially if you're a Star Wars fan, especially if you're a Han Solo fan. These are much better books than the Lando trilogy that we had. And overall, even though this one is slightly less, I rated it slightly less than the other two, I still think as a whole, it's going to be in the high 3s, maybe to the 4s for the overall trilogy. I still think that they're short books. They're a fun read. They're what you expect. They tie in as much as they can with the Star Wars universe. We get good characters of Han, good character of Chewie. I don't know so much as he would be a grave robber. I mean, he did a lot of grave robbing in this book. That's slightly out of Han Solo's character. Would he really be a grave robber? I'm trying to think of other instances where he might have participated in grave robbing. But that's essentially what he's doing, which of course is essentially what Indy did. But overall, I think this was a good read, and I think it's well worth your time. And I think it's a good sort of peek into the Han Solo backstory, into the Han Solo lore. Where do we go from here? There are 2 books left before we get to A New Hope. We have 2 books to read before we get into the novelizations of the original trilogy. So we're really close to catching up to where a lot of people have started their journey way back when with the original trilogy. And the next book that we're going to read is a horror themed book in Star Wars, and that's Joe Schreiber's Death Troopers. This is a standalone horror/zombie book set in the Star Wars universe. So that's the next book we're going to be reading. And then there'll be one more book after that, and then we're going to get into the original trilogy material and start looking at the Luke and Han and Leia portion of the expanded universe. I'm really excited to get into that aspect of the expanded universe, because that's where a lot of really good stories take place. So guys, that's my review of Brian Daley's Han Solo and the Lost Legacy, and the overall review of Brian Daley's Han Solo trilogy. If you read it and you liked it, or you didn't like it, what'd you think about it? Let me know. Put it down in the comments below. If you liked this trilogy, if you liked these books, or comment about any part of the expanded universe if you would like. And as always, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, give it a share, pass it around, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell those people who really, really do like Han Solo to get out there and read these books. And as always, thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and I will see you in the next review.